What's up guys, it's Brendan from Modern to Me, and today we're going to be learning about a keyword called continue. So we're going to get right into it. Today we're going to need to use the scanner and the array list. So just import those for me real quick and you'll be good to go. So what the continue keyword does, let me just type that out, it's just literally just continue, is it's very similar to the break keyword. Actually, it's not similar at all, it's the complete opposite. So if you remember the break keyword, if we had a while loop, or any sort of loop you can do this in, but just for instance, if you had a while loop, and say you had a while true loop, and it would execute, and then all of a sudden, if some sort of condition was true, you would call the break keyword, and it would break out of this while loop. Also, it can be used in for loops, so you could also have it as if a certain condition was met in a for loop or a do while loop. You could also call the break keyword, and the same thing is true for the continue keyword. So what does the continue keyword do? Well, what the continue keyword does is instead of breaking out of the loop, it just jumps to the next execution of the loop. So let's say, well, let me just show you. Let me think of an example to show you guys, so I can kind of show you how this works. So let's create a scanner, just to kind of add some interactivity to our program, and create a new scanner. And then once we get this all going with system.in, we will be able to create an array list. And so we're going to create an array list of integers. I hope you remember how to do this. So remember, just type array list, and then in the brackets type the type we want. And remember, you can't just type int, it has to be a class. So use the class integers, the integer class, excuse me, and name it ints. And just set this equal to a new array list of the integer type with the parentheses. And okay, perfect. We got the kind of the bare bones of our program. So what we want our program to do is we want it to get integer input continuously. So we're going to keep that while true loop. And what this program is going to do is it's going to output to the user, all right, enter even numbered integers. And so what we're going to have it do is, if they keep entering even numbered integers, it's going to add these integers to the array list. If the user enters an odd integer, we're going to process the input, but then we're not going to add it to the array list. We're just going to kind of go on and get more input. So we're not going to quit out of the program, but we are going to not get this input. And if the user enters 0, we're going to end the input stream. So let me kind of type this out in code so you can see what I'm talking about. So we have enter even numbered integers. Let's real quick create an int test input variable just to process our input. So what we're going to do is we're going to set each execution of this while true loop, we're going to set test input equal to in.nextInt. So every execution of this while loop, we are going to test the input. Okay, looks good. So now what we're going to do is we are going to kind of sort through this input, kind of test the input to see what kind of input we're dealing with, what the user entered, I should say. So if test input is equal to 0, what we're going to do is we want to quit out of the loop. So remember, for that we type break. Also, or let me go here, else if test input is odd, how do we test that? So what we can do is, remember, we can use that modulus operator. Modulus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so let me kind of go through this real quick. What you're doing is you're testing what the remainder of the number divided by 2 is. So any even number divided by 2 is going to have a remainder of 0. Any odd number that has that's divided by 2 will have a remainder of 1. So actually what we need this to be is if it's not equal to 0, let me add some spacing here. So if essentially, otherwise, if it's an even number, we want to continue on in the loop. That's where we can use this continue. So what this will do is, let me type the finishing statement. So the only other option is, if the number is even, we want to add it to ints. So ints.add, ints.add, and then just add our test input. And there we go. So what's going to happen is if we get this odd integer, it's just going to continue. So here, let me kind of add another statement here so it makes more sense. So if I had system.out.println, just say input processed. So what's going to happen is it's going to test the input, and if it's 0, it's going to break, and it will quit out of this loop and jump down to here. If it's odd, it's going to run this continue keyword, and what it's going to do is it's going to jump back to the top of the loop. So that's what the continue keyword does. It jumps to the top of the loop that you are currently executing. So it's going to jump back to the top of this while true loop and run this line again. If it's an even number, it's going to add this to the input array list, and then it's going to run this input processed system out.println. It's going to tell you that it processed it because it's not jumping to the top of the loop with continue, and it's not quitting out of the loop with break. Does it make sense, right? Cool. So now let's just kind of see how it works if we were to output all of our final input. So let's use the enhanced for loop that we learned. So if we go for integer I, remember the colon in ints, and then just go system.out.println, and then just print out I. Okay, there we go. That's our program. Let's see how it works. So we run this, enter even numbered integers. So if we were to enter 6, input processed, 2, input processed, 98, great, we're on a roll. What about 55? Oh man, it wasn't processed. Rats. That's all right. That's all right. Let's try 8. There we go. 5. Nope. All right. Let's do one more. 54, and then 0. It quits out of the loop and outputs from the for loop all of the numbers that we entered in order. So if you look back at the code, that's exactly what it was supposed to do. So great. We did it, guys. Yeah, nothing tricky. Just remember that's the opposite of the break. It just jumps to the top of the loop and keeps going in case for some reason that you don't want it to execute the rest of the code in the loop, or you know that it has nothing left to do in the loop. You can call the continue keyword. So it's really useful to know how to use this. So I appreciate you guys watching my tutorials. If you liked it, like, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.